kissing the ass in advance, actually. I was wondering out loud on my program in the last hour whether Trump literally bends over and says, kiss it. And if he did, whether, Zuckerberg and Bezos would do that. I'm curious your thoughts on, what's going on here and why ABC, when they clearly could have won this case, decided instead to give him $15 million.
Well, Tom, first, nice to be on your show, and I think that if Trump asked them to kiss his buttocks, they would say which one, both left and right. They'd be happy to do whatever he wants. This is about big money. And to remind people, Jeff Bezos blocked the Washington Post, which he's the owner of, from endorsing Vice President Harris right before the campaign. And we all knew something was up. We all knew something was very concerning. And now Jeff Bezos has agreed in the last week to give $1 million to Donald Trump's his inaugural committee. And bonus, live streaming on Amazon Prime, like any of us has to see it there. And Meta, not to be outdone, Mark Zuckerberg, also $1 million for the inaugural committee. And just so people know, Meta did not give any money in 2020 to Joe Biden's inauguration committee, nor in 2016 or 2017 to Trump's. This is a new era for corporate media. They understand Donald Trump is transactional in every part of his life. So they are throwing money at him, including the $15 million that ABC News did, owned by Disney, to suck up to Trump, not to have any problems. And Tom, Trump did a press conference today from Mar-a-Lago, and I had the mispleasure of watching it, but I thought it was important to watch it. And this issue came up. He talked about point blank suing more places, more media outlets, including Iowa, the Des Moines Register, for printing a poll about him that turned out to be wrong. And he even invoked the Justice Department. He said the Justice Department should be the really one looking into this. He is telling us he will use the Justice Department to come after him. So, Tom, I think to sum up, there is a business concern by these oligarchs and also a concern about him using DOJ to prosecute them, literally go after them personally and their corporations. And we're living in a new time now. This is the strong man has come to power, and they are bending a knee because, one, for business, and two, for loss of liberty potentially.
Right, and in fact, he had called for ABC to lose the licenses for their affiliated television stations, and that would, of course, would be a huge blow, and that would be the Federal Communications Commission, the FCC. So it sure looks to me, Dean, like what we're seeing is early stage real fascism. I mean, back in 1986, the dictionary definition in the American Heritage Dictionary, which I have at home, and I sometimes have to take a picture of it and publish it because people don't believe it. But for years, the definition of fascism was, and I quote, the merger of corporate and state interests combined with belligerent nationalism. Now, most modern dictionaries, and including the American Heritage Dictionary, now say, it's a strongman government and, quack, 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 the more Timothy Snyder definition. But right. I think that what we're looking at, we've seen, in 1983, Ronald Reagan ordered the Justice Department, the Securities and Exchange Commission, and the Federal Trade Commission to stop enforcing the Sherman Antitrust Act. In the 1960s, in 1965, when Buster Brown and Kinney Shoes wanted to merge, the Supreme Court shot that down because the combined company would have controlled 5% of the U.S. shoe market. Today, Nike controls 19% of the U.S. shoe market. Reagan stopped the enforcement of that act. That led to a 5-year period that was referred to as the M&A mania. People like Michael Milken and whatnot, buying the General Electric, Jack Welch, buying up companies, reducing redundancy. Hey, we just bought 40 companies and we're rolling them into one company. We don't need 39 CEOs. We don't need 39 purchasing managers. We don't need 39 accounting divisions. And the result of this is that we became basically a monopoly-based economy. And now these monopolies, which have created a lot of these billionaires, are reaching out for control over our government itself. And government has tremendous power. And Trump is now saying essentially that he's going to wield that power on behalf of them or against them. Speak to that power. I mean, you're an attorney. You're familiar with it. Yeah. The power to imprison or even literally to kill people is an awesome power that only government holds.
I think there's no doubt that Donald Trump will use his DOJ to make an example of a few people. And that's how a wannabe autocrat gets even more power. This is not obeying in advance, like Timothy Snyder said. This is actually obeying after someone is punished. So what he does is make an example of a few people. It might be a prosecution, it might be heavy fines, it might be some kind of penalty to the company that's so painful that everyone else begins to self-censor. And self-censorship is an autocrat's best friend, because you don't have to do anything anymore. People are just holding back on their own. They're going, I could write this article, or I could use this word, but I'll use this other word. It's a little softer. And I won't use fascism anymore. I'll say things like strongman, which Trump would actually like, as opposed to an autocratic threat to our democracy. So, Tom, I think, we can debate, is this an oligarchy? Is this a kleptocracy? Is it a plutocracy? The one thing it's no longer going to be is a democratic republic going forward. And big money now is going to sit at the table. And by the way, at Trump's press conference today, he talked about Mark Zuckerberg came and had dinner with him. Tim Cook from Apple he said, Jeff Bezos is coming this week. And he said he was kind of shocked because in 2016, everyone was fighting me. He goes, now they want to come here and meet with me. They want to talk to me. They view him as purely transactional. And so it's a different level now. They see this as some kind of old era of government where corruption is legalized, and it's fine because bribery is legal now. You can get a super PAC donation of $270 million, like Elon Musk did, to help Donald Trump in his campaign and the Republicans. It's a new Gilded Age. We've talked about this. And my hope is we get to the backlash where we have a reform era, a progressive reform era against this. I don't know what's going to take for that to happen. Because at the same time, Tom, I watch it very closely today, while he's talking about these big wealthy people came to meet with him. At the same time, he's rarely against big pharma for charging too much money to consumers for goods. So he's giving crumbs, populist crumbs, to people who go like, look, he cares about us. And on the other end, he's talking about meeting with the oligarchs in the various industries. It's a little shrewder than I thought he was going to be. He was more lucid than I expected in the press conference today. It was deeply alarming in a different way.
Yeah, no, and this is, by the way, not coincidentally, this is how Hitler consolidated his power in the early 1930s. Like you said, you throw a few crumbs to the people, and you bring in basically all the power structures. It seems to me that what we're going to end up with, Dean, is favored industries and disfavored industries. Bob Kennedy talking about, and I refuse to call him Bobby because that's his dad. I remember his dad. Bob Kennedy is talking about going after the ultra-processed food industry, for example. Something that I would support, actually, and I think a lot of Americans might. And so what's happening now, it appears to me, and I'd love to get your take on this, is that companies are realizing very quickly that they can be a favored industry or a disfavored industry. That you've got to pick sides right now.
I agree with you. And earlier today, and I'm going to write an article about it as well. But earlier today, I was sharing an article from about 7-8 years ago, just about the Nazi industrialists. And Elon Musk was around in the time of Hitler, but his name was Gustav Krupp. And Gustav Krupp was a big, wealthy donor who was a big industry man and helped the Nazi party in 1933 in those elections. He bankrolled them. Hitler called him the Fuhrer of industry. And he bankrolled so much of what the Nazis did. And ultimately, Gustav Krupp was charged with war crimes by the Nuremberg trials. Same thing with Alfred Krupp. But it was also, Gustav Krupp was the main person then. That is the Elon Musk of that time. Going in a more modern era example, and I've written about this before, it's the Putin oligarchs. Putin, when he comes to power, brings the oligarchs in, says, you do business with me. You don't stand in my way. You'll be rewarded with great wealth. But if you stand in my way, you're going to pay a price. And that he does a few examples of oligarchs who go to jail and disappear and nationalizes their assets. And Trump, will he nationalize? Maybe. We might get to another place. You can use the Fifth Amendment. The taking clause of the Fifth Amendment just says the government can take someone's property, but you get fair market compensation for it. It's all legal. Like we've seen it with eminent domain for a highway exit ramp coming through someone's neighborhood. He could do this and would be all constitutionally upheld by this Supreme Court that will do anything he wants and starts buying assets. And we have to own this company or this company. More and more mergers. The less competition, the better it is for these business people. People get it. Instead of having 3 competitors, you have 2, or you own them all. They're all different parts of your company. And it is bad for consumers. We're going to see more and more that they've been so upset the last 4 years, especially big tech has been upset by Lena Khan and the FTC standing up to them. So that's why so much money was thrown at this. And plus, you've got crypto. They're going to usher in, they're going to give crypto this veneer of credibility and legitimacy by doing some fake regulations. And we can both see it, Tom. I think we talked about it when you were on my show. That's the next economic crash. I'm not saying tomorrow. I'm not saying a year from now, and people could make good money on crypto. It's a pyramid scheme. At some point, the music stops, and the middle class and lower class will be held holding the bag, and the wealthy would have cashed out already. That's the reality of where we're going. That's another thing. So we will have another crash before these 4 years are over. Donald Trump will drive the economy into a ground, and Democrats will win the White House in 4 years because of that, which is Groundhog Day over and over and over.
Yeah, I think you're right. And with regard to crypto, I don't recall if you and I discussed this when I was on your show, but wait until the quantum computers come along. I mean, Google just successfully tested a quantum chip, and a quantum computer can do math calculations literally 100 million times faster than a regular computer. And so producing Bitcoin will become really super cheap with quantum computing. And, it's like making money and generating pornography are always the top two things that any new technology is directed toward, And here we are. So I'm fully expecting that when it becomes cheaper, or even just next generation chips, when it becomes cheaper to produce Bitcoin, I mean, there's no intrinsic value there. It's not like gold. There's intrinsic value to gold.
And what you're talking about is completely accurate and it makes sense. But Bitcoin is not about the actual Bitcoin and someone mining it. It's literally just a way to make money. It's nothing more, right? So you can have more or less Bitcoins. It's not going to be supply and demand. It's trading over $100,000 for Bitcoin now. It was $20,000 less than a year ago. Why did it happen? It could be a year from now, $10,000. If people have lost their shirts, it could be $200,000. It doesn't matter. It is a pyramid scheme where people are throwing their money in. And then some are taking their money out and investing in real things, but maybe they're putting down payments on property. And then when their Bitcoin crashes, they can't make the payments. We have another real estate bubble that happens again. I'm deeply concerned about crypto. I'm not saying if people are invested in it, it's fine. Just keep your eyes open. That's all I'm saying. More than stocks, there are no assets to Bitcoin. It is a currency. It's a digital currency. It is worth nothing. Exactly what you're saying. No intrinsic value. There's no earnings. There's no assets. It can't do anything. It's a game. It is a pyramid scheme. And if you want to make money with it, God bless you, but keep your eyes open. That's all I'm saying.
And now Trump's son, Eric, and I believe Don is involved in this too, are starting a crypto company.
Of course. Oh, my God. Putin is learning from these guys. Putin's like, we have to do that. I even started a crypto company, have his own Putin coin. There'll be like Dogecoin, there'll be Trump coin. There is Trump coin, but there will be a crypto Trump where his supporters will invest into it, the same thing. And if you're going to get in early. Be the smart money, not the dumb money. Get in there and then get out before it crashes. I'm not being mean about this when I say, on the right, they say they want to own the libs. Well, if this goes south, you might own the libs, but you might not own your house anymore because the bank will have foreclosed on it. And I say that as sympathy for our fellow Americans. I don't wish ill to the MAGA people. I really don't. I want to defeat Trump. Yeah, but the MAGA base.
I'm with you. Dean Obeidallah is with us. We'll be right back. Stick around.